It is a brilliant privilege and pleasure to welcome NEA Jazz Master Dave Liebman for a conversation today. How's it going, my man?
I'm doing okay. Nice to see you, and thanks for inviting me to the show.
Absolutely, absolutely. I want to start actually with something very recent that I was able to share with you. Just last week, I wandered into the Jazz Gallery. Um, to be honest, kind of grieving the passing of a friend of mine,
Oh,
Dr. Lonnie Smith,
oh yes. Sorry
who
to hear that.
was somebody special. But man, I sat down and what I heard was the exact thing that I needed to hear. Um, it was medicine. It was spontaneous in the moment. Yourself, along with Tashawn Sari and Adam Rudolph, just took me to a very special place that I'm still gleaming from. I've still got the glow from it, and I want to say thank you first of all,
That was
and secondly, I want to ask you about just that moment and playing with those guys. It had a very unique order to it, even within the freedom. Any reflections?
well. It was a one time only, or I don't know about only, but first time. Let's put it that way. And I never even met Ty Sean. I didn't know him. Adam, we had already done two recordings, and I knew Adam, but he suggested Ty Sean. He said because he had done a gig with him, and he said we would be nice. So I always guy comes in strong for somebody. You go, okay, let's see what happens. So that's how the occasion occurred. And playing like that, I mean, you talk free form, free jazz. I mean, we don't have to go there because it's been covered now for 50 years. But it means no agenda, period. No agenda harmonically, no agenda melodically, no agenda textually, no agenda, which means what's left? Well, that's the name of the game. What's left? You could play on the glass of a door, you could play on the floor. That'll go pretty quick. Like Hans Bennig from Netherlands, very great drummer. Yeah, he walks around the club and he takes some balance. He plays every surface in the club. That's good for 10 seconds, I mean, but the new generation, like Tyshawn, playing open and free like that is to them like playing rhythm changes. It's something they learn to do, and those who do it well have certain tendencies that are common. And not necessarily here, but when I teach it, we come up with ways of conceiving of it. But the bottom line is there's no agenda. That's the bottom line.
That's beautiful,
man. And I'm glad. I mean, it's great to hear that that you were there and that you took it as medicine, because that's what it is. It is a form of medicine. I mean, the music we play, all of us, trails on the spiritual quite closely. And when you hear somebody telling you that they walked in and they got the point, I go, yeah, that's it. So thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Your brand new record has me smiling as well, because it's very interesting that it would come out at this time as we're starting to, as a whole, reinvestigate and reimagine what it meant in John Coltrane's life, specifically around that 1965, 1966 era. Yes. But I think you've done something really brilliantly. You've synthesized a lot of these tunes that maybe people heretofore had been cautious about approaching. A tune like Compassion for Meditations, which may be my favorite Coltrane album if forced to pick just one.
I'm with you. I think it's one of the most important records of the century. The themes and the sound, and plus the dedications. So we're on the same page. That's 36 great minutes, I'll tell you right now.
Absolutely.
And the funny thing is, I talked to McCoy about it over 20-year difference. So sometime in the 70s, and then I got a hold of him in the 90s, something like that. And I asked the common question, which is, was there any music written down? And of course, I can't with McCoy, he was very general. Sometimes he didn't want to give it up, I guess. But he said, well, I don't remember, but it sort of came, John just started playing. Well, anyway, that's I don't know, but boy, that's something else. And one little last thing, about meditations. It's interval based. I mean, it comes out that each movement has some different interval situation, which is what I was interested in at the beginning, and of course grew to love music, obviously. But it's quite a piece of work, meditations.
And I just have to ask you, I know you saw that band, over the course of several months during that period. The last time that you saw them, can you remember that? What was it like? Where was it? Any reflections on that? I'm really curious about that.
The only one I have of the many times I saw him, and the only one I have of late train was when they played the Vanguard, and they played what's it called, My Favorite Things Again, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's those two, or some of those tunes. And well, in the Village Vanguard, it was pretty loud. I can tell you that. It was, they didn't pull any excuses, no stops. An hour and a quarter break, another set. I don't remember what they played, but that was with Pharaoh and Alice and Jimmy and Train, of course, and maybe some of the other guys who were around the periphery. Maybe they were there, probably sitting in, because Train was very relaxed about that. But all I know is when I heard that at the Vanguard, music that was more suitable for an auditorium, I said, holy shit, this is unbelievable. I mean, they're doing this here. No wonder they're thinking it's loud, or whoever thought it was loud. And that is also the first time that I didn't officially meet Train, but I was standing in a little circle of a couple of folks who were talking to him, and I was just peeping a little bit. But that was the last gig. And of course, from 62, first time I saw Train was February of 62. And so I had seen the evolution of, for example, My Favorite Things, which I mean is kind of hit. It's a tune waiting to be a hit, and it was a hit. And then I recorded it. I recorded it 20 years ago. They transformed a ditty, I call it a ditty, a nursery rhyme, with the word. How can he do this? What is going on here? I mean, because now it wasn't just the version we all know from the blue cover with him at the soprano. Now it was like, I mean, they went right to the get-go, right at the start, right at the top. They took no prisoners right away. So that was a momentous night, whatever that night was. It had to be 66, I imagine, because the Train kind of started cutting back after that.
Right. Man, thanks for sharing. I would have loved to have been present.
You were mesmerized, and you couldn't move. And if it was only just, and last thing, I don't want to go too far in this, but that music was not approved. It was, it got a cold shoulder a lot. I mean, in the press, the musicians, I mean, Train had gone too far, they said. The Seattle one that's coming now is already happening. I mean, there's a version of Body and Soul that it's to die for. I mean, it's the chord changes. They bring it in for this tune. They bring it into the time, and it's more conservative than Meditations, but it's right around the same month as Meditations. I think it's November, and Train's already. He's into the next stage already, and they were, Train got a lot of flack.
Yeah.
He got a lot of flack, either hidden flack or overt flack, for playing like that late Coltrane style. And when Michael and Joe Brecker and Joe Lovato, when we decided to put Sax Summit together, which had a nice 10-year life, we were trying to, I don't say recreate, but we were definitely going to late Train vibe. And that was what, because I said to the cats, there's a part of Train that is not explored, that has gotten negative situations and negative feeling about it. And who else is going to do it but guys like us who are getting up in age and saw it. We saw it, and we played it that way in the loft sessions, my loft, that Michael took from me when Michael moved into Manhattan. This was all part of the idea, like, we're going to get this stuff on the map. We had Serenity, Cosmos, Peace on Earth.
Yeah.
I mean, of the newest stuff. So that's an interesting trajectory.
Absolutely. And again, I'm just grateful that you chose some of that material for this new record, Selflessness. And in that original recording, I believe that's what Train was about. And I see you doing the same thing. You've got a band of just miracle workers with you, and your job is to be a guiding force, but part of the whole, and you allow them their own time to step forward, whether it be arranging or soloing or what have you. Can you talk a little bit about this ensemble? It's really special.
Well, it was, again, it was created as a kind of way of looking at Late Train with guys who could do it. You know, not wannabes, but two Bs. You know, they're there. And it started out in the late '90s, actually at the Red Sea Festival in Israel. I had been thinking about it, and hadn't seen Michael that much in those years before. But I got a hold of him. I said, Michael, let's go upstairs and we'll talk a little bit. So what do you want to talk about? I said, I want to talk about Late Train and our responsibility to get that music on the map. Very succinct and very direct, and that's exactly what I wanted. I mean, we could also play Olé, that's true, but this was, I said it to him. And then he said, the critics will kill us. I said, F you, the critics. They don't know. They don't know what to talk about. This is some shit that should be out for the generation that is now sitting at our feet because we're the teachers. This is a little bit of the nail that's missing. And who else is to do it except us? And then, of course, Joe was, an obvious pick for three. And this was the beginnings. And then, of course, we had tour, record, we had a couple of, then it had a life of its own. A busy life because these are among the most, active musicians in the world.
Mm-hmm.
But we were able to really get, I think we did 3 records, at least 3.
Mm-hmm.
And, to hear everybody play every night, man, when we do a tour, it's just, it's something, when you stand next to somebody, I always talk about this. I says, there's a couple of situations that we exist in. Listen at home, headphones, whatever. Right. We listen on a gig, and the gig is either club or concert hall, something like that. And then some of us who are very fortunate have the opportunity to stand next to somebody and see what they do and get their vibe. I mean, do they play different? They play the same way. You're just closer to it, and you're signifying that energy that you're feeling being on the stage in this kind of maelstrom and windstorm and everything like that. And that was a great thing to be able to hear Michael and Joe every night, and Phil Markowitz, and eventually Cecil.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Jabali, Billy Hart.
Yeah. You guys had something really special, and your expansions, your new band does too. Listening to Mr. Day. I was trying to do my math, and I was like, I almost got it, but I don't know.
That's Alex, But I stayed away from that for this gig because we were only going to play 2 sets, really.
Okay.
And I don't like to bring a tune in that is cumbersome. Why when you have many others you could do? If we had a 2-week tour, Mr. Day would have been in there. But I had to call, take something off. And the call was like, drop that because you have to count with your fingers. Because you're relegated to being a timekeeper, which is like you want to be a time player.
Sure. Sure. Oh man, but again, compassion, and there's a newer tune, well, newer for me, that appeared on this thing they put out a couple of years ago, Both Directions at Once. I think it's One Up, One Down, not One Down, One Up. But
that's I saw him play. He played that, and the title. Everybody had been going crazy with the title. One up, one down, one down, one up. I called it Untitled Original, which is not right, et cetera, et cetera. But that was like really one of Train's. I mean, at that period, complete Elvin and Train burn, because playing that head that I've rearranged, but basically it's the same thing. Right for the kick, right there, you're committed. If you don't mean it, get away, because the flak is going to start flying away, and you're going to be left in the dust. That's all I can tell you, bro.
Indeed. Indeed. I love it. Oh man. And with tunes like Olé and Dear Lord, there's still new they're still mined for new treasures, and you guys have found some very unique ways to play that as well. What is it about these guys, this expansion ensemble, the newer generation,
The
that
newer
is.
generation is doing what when we were the new generation, and
Mm,
what the swing guys did when there was a new generation to Dixieland. I mean, you could make a case that every 10 years the music changes. We'd have to review that as a blanket statement, which, not 100% correct, but the way this generation looks at a standard. I mean, we play All the Things You Are, one of the great classic standards, it's a great tune, great harmony. And they automatically go, and the bass player is my guy. He's been with me for 30, 40 years. But the piano player, Bobby, I mean, he completely goes for the jugular right away. I mean, no messing around, no stop off and get your hat. You better be having on because you're going to be dealing with this. And he is this very special cat who looks at the music as a voyage. And he's a big part of the voyage. And he was a student, of course, and now he's 35 years old, 40 years old. But these guys, I mean, when we play a standard, when we work it, pandemic is over, and they start all blues. I don't know where they are sometimes. And I'll tell you who I compare this to. When Miles had the group with Chick and Jack and Wayne, and of course Ron Carter. I'm telling you that Chick harmonically, when Chick was playing, no way Miles knew what it was. No way. I mean, now what did you say? What do you mean what it was? I mean, harmonically. What Chick, Herbie, of course, but even more Chick. Chick is playing like these different kinds of things that, and Miles is listening, doing the best he can do. But I felt like that I see what I'm surmising, I'm generalizing, probably not cool.
no, you can.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's like, that vibe of hitting it, and everything like that. They had that. They were young cats, and they had that drummer. I had to tell him to soften up. I did these clips. He says, "I know you're feeling no pain today." I said, "What do you mean?" I said, "You're hitting a little hard for a club rock."
Nice.
And he's cool. Alex is cool. He's great. He's got a hand drum thing, which fit Ole very, very well, by the way. That's
I really enjoyed that.
But they're really great, and they're beautiful guys, and they just, that's why I call it expansions. Expansions is me expanding and them expanding as in relationship to me. What they learn from me is their means of expansion. What I get from them is it's the same thing.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And to witness that, symbiosis through hearing it is really, really awesome. I really trust that the folks will come around to it. Those of us like myself who are, deep diehard fans of, you and how you've interpreted music over the years. I think it's not just a Coltrane tribute. It's like a reimagining, of some language that was there that we need to kind of come to terms with, because it's been, 60 years. Why is this so hard to understand? I'm not really sure.
The trio gig that you walked in on last week with Ty Sean and Adam, the response, I don't think I've ever had this in a club. Standing O and would not let us go. We were just like, and I'm on crutches, so I can't move too good. I mean, I said, sure, get off, because once we get off, I'm off. I ain't coming back on again.
Yeah.
I said, and then Adam said, I think they want another tune, or whatever we call it, another piece of work, And but my point is, the audience, whatever the audience is, as limited as it may be, or as grand as it may be, that's another decision, is ready for this kind of playing. I mean, they've been ready for the last 10 years. This is what I mean by looking at the music differently. Every 10 years is a new way. I mean, if they played All the Things You Are and they played it in their style, you would have trouble recognizing the tune. You know what I mean? So that audience, I mean, I've never seen anything like it. They were almost on the tables and shit.
Yeah.
And that with that group, and we played really very, very free. So it means people are ready, and not only they're ready, they're hungry for it. And we can go in there and play Oleo or Ole, or whatever. And we could do that, and they'd be nice, and of course, in the hands of good guys who can play, we transform those tunes too. But this audience was like, we want more. I mean, it was particularly that audience. The second set was a little different, but that audience was like, we're ready for this, go for it, deal. That was interesting from that night that I felt.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Man, I can't let you go without asking you about the great Elvin Jones, someone who unfortunately I was close to seeing and meeting, but it just didn't happen for me. One of the regrets of my life. But you were beside him, night after night, and to be able to feel that power going through your body and still respond. Man, you have to be somebody special yourself, man. Talk to me about learning to play with Elvin, because at that time there's still nobody like him, but in that era,
he was one of a kind. He was and he had trouble too when he came to New York, because he was very unorthodox already. By 57, 58, he was already who he was. I mean, he needed McCoy and Train and Jimmy Garrison, of course, to finish off what he intended, but he would have played no matter who it is. He didn't matter. He played his ass off all the time, and he played. I mean, I was young and naive, and I figured, oh wow, I got a chance to be in Train's footsteps, and Elvin's going to come along with me. We're going to have this amazing duo ride, especially the duo, especially Elvin and me, or Grossman. You know what I mean? And I couldn't understand why he wasn't doing that by about the third or fourth month, and I was getting a little drugged with it. I said, I'm putting down, I'm throwing down. And he's playing like, very cool until like 3 or 4 minutes. By the time we get there, then okay. So it's the first 4 minutes I was focused on. What is happening here? He's not going to play like he did it for Coltrane. Dave, you're in the wrong place, and you ain't that good, So don't be doing nothing like that. You got trouble if you do that, But he was. I always say, next to my father, he was the man I most respect for his being and his humanity and his love of life and of the world. I mean, he had Keikos who helped him through all this, but he was like, he was the ocean, sky, the mountains. He was everything grand that you could think of in the world, especially if it's not man-made or not man included. It's nothing specific. It's just his vibe. And you knew it as soon as he hit the bandstand. I mean, he could be fooling around, joking around, especially when Jimmy Garrison was on the gig. Those guys had a language and all that. It was like, yeah, remember that, dude, that's when Jimmy was on the gig, which happened a few times, like that. But he had a joy, and he'd come off the bandstand in a break, sweating, dripping sweat. Go over to the nearest table and say, how you doing, folks? So nice of you to come. I mean, he was so gracious. He was everything like that. He was also a mofo. He could be tough, and he could be, if he had, like a taste too many, and he wasn't drinking, but if he had a little something or whatever he was doing, he could get a little cantankerous, so to say. I mean, he could be a little bit, of course, but so all of us, you know what I mean? I mean, then he would go up on stage and he'd start. There's a great video that I just saw. You probably know it already. Duke Ellington with Elvin.
Yeah.
I just saw it for the first time a couple of weeks ago. You know that Elvin is completely soused. I mean, he's just about holding the sticks on. And he's a little like that on the Antibes concert also. Or Belgium, one of those gigs in Europe. And when he'd be drinking something and he'd, go to the other side. Both sides now, whatever that title is. He'd be amazing. But those were exceptions, not the rule.
Right on. Man.
Of course, one musical thing. Elvin owned something which comes from Lester Young, and that is playing behind the beat. When you have the beat steady the way it's like bat, 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 bat,
right.
Instead of bat, 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 which is right on it. And he was known for this, and he could do it, especially at certain tempos, and certainly 3/4. When they would play favorite things slower, that's another one. he had a way of going around the tom-toms, kind of much more African than anything when he was, when they were playing a 3/4 tune. And I knew that this was going to be the big challenge because I'd seen Elvin not only with Train, but Elvin was everywhere I went, he was. And I was a student type, and he was playing. So I knew that I had to get behind the beat. There's no books on it.
Right.
There's no medicine. There's no uniform. There's no food. There's nothing except you and the stick on the cymbal. And that was something that I had to do. So very frustrating. First 6 months, I did not have it to my satisfaction. Elvin would never have said anything. Those guys, that era, they didn't talk about music. They didn't need correct. You didn't go in and say, you played a G7 instead of an F sharp 7. They didn't talk like that. They just said, you got to work on the bridge a little bit, boy. Much more generalized. So it wasn't like Elvin came over to me and said, you're rushing. I know I'm rushing. Do something about it. But he didn't say that. He let me be what I be. And then one day, listening to the tapes, was the beginning of cassette machines, 71. I got it. I did it.
Yeah.
I could do it. And then he don't know, but I smiled. I turned around and gave a big smile and said, I got this now.
That's cool. That's too cool.
That's a musical thing that you had to learn from the horse's mouth. And that was Elvin playing behind the beat. Very specific. Very specific.
Yeah. I dream, I play some electric bass, and I dream like, man, I don't know if I could hold it down. I'd like to think I could, but I don't know, man. Like, that's a language, just like you said, that you had to learn and be around to, flow with, even in the exchanges, like when you guys would, play fours or trade fours with them. I'm like, are they gonna make? Yeah, they made it.
That's one of the hardest things with Elvin, was when we did fours or eights, because his downbeat, and you'd sit there with a metronome, seeing if you could get, not on the stage, but at home or something, and you put it on, and you were trying to get it, and you couldn't get it. It was an unspoken thing, and he had it, and he would, we do a lot of tunes at that tempo for that reason, I assume. But the other thing was, he wouldn't turn that energy on until he felt it was ready. He wasn't about to let me dictate where the energy level should go, like Train did. He's gonna say, you better earn your stripes, brother. You sit right there and you keep doing behind the beat. You'll see one day you wake up and you'll be able to do it like water. And he was right.
That's beautiful. That's right. Beautiful. Oh my goodness. Well, I'm so happy that we're emerging, out of this pandemic gradually, of course, but just kind of want to know, what you've been, thinking about, how you've, used this time. I know you've been super busy, and, for the last, 40 years, teaching and playing and recording. Did you appreciate the break, or is it a situation where it couldn't end fast enough for you?
In between, I dug more time with the family. It's the most I've seen my wife ever.
Yeah.
That was one good thing. I occasionally looked at music. I'm in a situation where we're living like in an apartment now. We moved to Pennsylvania. It's kind of tight, called music room. So it's not like luxurious, like throw the Elvin pile over there, the Miles pile over there. I don't know that. So it doesn't attract me that much. But on the other hand, as you're saying, now I have it looks like I'm going to make 3 records in the next month or 2.
Wow.
Doing a couple of over. Suddenly I'm like found again, and they're coming to me. Which is right. I put my time in, and I got a lot to tell them if they care to know. Them being, younger guys, compatriots, your peers, of course. But so now it's not, besides some medical stuff I have to take care of. It was a free pass, but it was under a depressed situation. So what good is it, to be in a negative situation and not play what that is, but try to play what that isn't? You know what I'm talking about, Greg?
Yes. Yes.
When I get on the stage, I can't fake that the world sucks. More than it's ever has. It's always been a drag, but it's, this is a palpable drag. And it made me not feel like playing. And again, and just from a practical standpoint, logistics, there's nowhere to play. You can't play in New York. You can't in Manhattan. You can't play blah, 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 blah. there's too many hurdles unless you want to do it. Now you can do writing, but I like writing as an outgrowth of playing. So I was going to do one and not the other. So I would say Mets and Mets, 50-50, as far as my reaction, what I felt during the pandemic.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that we're both here to talk about it and to meet up. And I'm looking forward to watching the progression of Selflessness with expansions. Like I said, I really appreciate this album, and that you would take the time to get this music of Late Train through your lenses. I think it's very fresh, and I wish you the best with it. Anything coming up in the for you, playing wise, performance wise, that you're specifically looking forward to?
There's a project that I'm not sure I can still convene yet, but it's going to be, it has to do with Smalls, the club Smalls, and a performance. Seems like the owner there got bankrolled for being able to do some projects and get paid. He's paying it back, and that's going to be sometime in January.
Okay.
It looks like I'm making a record with complete change of course with Kirk Lightsey and Santi DiBriano and and Victor Lewis.
Nice.
The label came to me and we talked. We're gonna have a meeting next day or two. So that looks like a co-led record, and that'll probably be pretty straight ahead, I would imagine. I mean, I don't really like to play straight ahead. So those are two things right off the top of my head.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll get you to stay on just for 60 seconds more, but it's been my pleasure meeting you, Brother Dave. Thank you so much for everything.
Thank you, guys.